An attempt to kill the wife and children of a French official amid rioting in France. Attackers tried to set fire to the home and property of the Paris mayor as violence swept the country for a fifth night running.
Given the extreme seriousness of these events, the Public Prosecutor's Office has decided to classify them as an assassination attempt.
Also tonight, NHS strike disruption is only going to get worse, according to health chiefs. Plus, record numbers of people are seeking help for gambling addiction. And high drama at Lord's. With booze and chants as England almost pull off a miraculous Ashes win.
Would I want to potentially win a game with something like that happening? And it would be no.
This is ITV News with Lucy Watson.
Good evening. An arson attack on the wife and children of a Paris mayor is being treated as an assassination attempt amid escalating violence in France. The country's Prime Minister has condemned the rioters who rammed a car into the family's home before setting it alight. It was the fifth night of unrest across the country. In total, more than 3,000 people have been arrested nationwide. Rioting erupted on Tuesday after teenager Nahel Merzouk was shot dead by police at point-blank range. Tonight, curfews will be in place in some cities, and parents are being urged to keep their teenagers inside. Sejal Correa is in Paris and has this report on the fury and the violence.
It is a troubling escalation in these riots. The scorched car used as a weapon to attack the home of a local mayor of a Paris suburb. Last night, protesters set fire to the car and rammed it into the front gate of the house, injuring his wife and one of his children. This morning, the French Prime Minister met the mayor, who appeared shaken, telling him those responsible will be punished severely. And the public prosecutor has begun an investigation for attempted murder.
La qualification de tentative d'assassinat.
Given the extreme seriousness of these events, the Public Prosecutor's Office has decided to classify them as an assassination attempt, and every effort will be made to find the perpetrators and bring them to justice.
As violence erupted again for a fifth night running, the worst of it in Marseille, with street battles between police and protesters. In central Paris, on its famous boulevard, the Champs-Élysées, only a huge show of force stopped looting and demonstrations. The order from the top was to get a grip. Officers had been stopping, searching and arresting vast numbers of youths from early evening. But many young black and Arab men here don't feel safe around the police, accusing them of racial profiling and discrimination.
I
think it's a problem from the police's side, not gonna lie. Not all, but many of the French police are racist.
Are you afraid of the police?
Am I afraid? Frankly, every time I find myself in a situation where I'm stopped, I immediately feel afraid.
With feelings still running high, the question is how the government will bring these riots to an end.
Well, Sejal joins me now. Sejal, President Macron is holding an emergency meeting as we speak, and there have been calls for calm from elsewhere too, haven't there?
Yes, that's right. That call for calm has been made by the grandmother of 17-year-old Nahel, the teenager that was shot dead by police and whose death has sparked these riots. She is urging protesters to stop their violence, saying that they are using her grandson's death as an excuse. Meanwhile, as you say, the French President Emmanuel Macron is holding a national crisis meeting with his ministers right now. That is the British equivalent of the Cobra meeting, and we are expecting him to make a statement shortly. What I am not expecting him to do is to declare a state of emergency, but what I can tell you is that authorities have approved for police to use aerial drone surveillance of some neighbourhoods in some of the suburbs of Paris.
Sergio Corre in Paris, thank you. The Health Service is marking its 75th anniversary on Wednesday, but patients have very little to celebrate. The head of NHS England has warned that strike disruption will only get worse, with both junior doctors and consultants taking industrial action this month. Well, our political correspondent Harry Horton is with me now. Harry, why will these strikes be more significant?
Well, for two reasons. One is that they will last for 7 days in quick succession, and the other is that the work of junior doctors, and in particular consultants, we're told by NHS bosses, is much harder to cover. So we're likely to see more operations cancelled and NHS waiting lists grow as a result of these strikes. Now, the head of NHS England, Amanda Pritchard, said today that patients are paying the price for the fact there hasn't been a resolution to this industrial action so far. The latest round of strikes takes place later this month. From the 13th to the 18th of July, the junior doctors are on strike. And then from the 20th to the 21st, just after that, the consultants will go on strike. The nursing strikes, they're off. That's because the Royal College of Nursing didn't meet the required threshold in the ballot to mandate for further strikes. The government had hoped the worst of these NHS strikes would be over. Clearly, that's not the case. Today, the Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, he said that there are no talks currently ongoing with junior doctors.
Junior doctors chose to walk away from the talks. There are many other issues for us to discuss, such as people taking annual leave, changes in rosters, some of the wellbeing issues that junior doctors face. We stand ready to have those discussions, but the junior doctors need to stop their strikes.
Well, the British Medical Association that represents junior doctors, they said today that it was the government who cancelled the remaining meetings. They say they will call off the strikes if Rishi Sunak makes a credible offer on pay.
A difficult month ahead. Thanks, Harry. 2 people have been killed after a mass shooting at a party in Baltimore in America. Another 28 people were taken to hospital with injuries. The gunman is still on the run. 3 people who died in a flat fire in Cambridge have been named by police. 31-year-old Gemma Germany died at the scene, while 8-year-old Lily Peden and Oliver Peden, who was 4, died later in hospital. The US President Joe Biden is expected to meet the King and the Prime Minister when he visits the UK later this month. The White House said today the trip will strengthen UK and US relations. The number of people seeking help for gambling addiction in England has hit record levels. Health officials are warning that adults and children are being targeted and bombarded with adverts. New specialist clinics are to be opened because of an increasing demand for care. Callum Watkinson has the story.
Now everyone can carry a casino in their pocket. Gambling addiction is spinning out of control. It's one of many public health issues unforeseen by the founders of the NHS, which today announced it's almost doubling the number of clinics dedicated to treating it.
Back in 1948, when the NHS was founded, you had to go to a bookie shop to place a bet. Now it's 24/7 on people's phones. So, unsurprisingly, we're seeing a really significant increase in demand. And for people who have got severe gambling addiction, it's a really cruel disease, and it's a life destroyer.
It destroyed Luke Ashton, who took his own life 2 years ago after borrowing thousands of pounds and losing it betting, sometimes 100 times a day. His wife was told at an inquest this week the platform he used did not intervene and could have done more, as thousands continue to tumble into the same trap. There were 775 referrals for gambling treatment between 2020 and 21. A year later, that had increased by 30% to more than 1,000. And in the last year, the number jumped again to almost 1,400. One recovering gambling addict who now campaigns for those still suffering says more regulation is needed of the companies that profit from their habits.
At the moment, the gambling industry, particularly online gambling, derives about 86% of its profits from the 5% of people that are addicted or at risk. So we can continue to treat the people that get addicted, but there's always more people getting addicted all the time, and it's much easier to prevent that happening in the first place.
A white paper under consultation suggests a levy on the industry to help treat the symptoms of this problem. But those touched by it say it would be a surer bet for society to clamp down harder on the cause. Callum Watkinson, ITV News.
Cricket now, and the second Ashes test has gone the way of Australia in what was one of the most thrilling and controversial ends to a test match in recent memory. An astonishing century from Ben Stokes wasn't enough, though, to get England over the line as Australia took a 2-0 lead in the 5-match series. Lords has had to apologise after confrontations between fans and players. Chris Scudder reports.
It'll go down as one of the most contentious moments in the long history of the Ashes.
Oh, now this is going to be interesting.
England's Johnny Bairstow walked out of his ground when he thought the ball was dead, and the Aussies' Alex Carey ran him out. Within the rules of the game, but outside the spirit of it. Just not cricket. Same old Aussies always cheating, sang the England crowd.
That's all you're ever going to be remembered for, that. That's all you'll ever be remembered for.
Was the smouldering exchange from Stuart Broad to Carey. But the most damning verdict came from the Lords' long room, that bastion of fair play and politeness. The Aussies were booed as they came off for lunch. The old place had never seen anything like it. The blue touch paper was lit and Ben Stokes went on the rampage. 3 sixes in a row, and Lords' normally reserved crowd was roaring with approval.
An epic way to go to a test match 100.
It was a heroic attempt to win the match, but after 9 big sixes, Stokes was eventually out for a superb 155. And from there, England fell 43 runs short. But an extraordinary day will be remembered for the controversy.
Would I want to potentially win a game with something like that happening? And it would be no.
I thought it was fair. You know, it's, you see Johnny do it all the time. He did it day one to Davey Warner. He did it in 2019 to Steve. It's a really common thing for keepers to do if they see a batter keep leaving their crease.
There's a difference between the spirit and the law. And this was within the law, but not within the spirit.
Didn't do anything wrong. Cummins could have reversed the decision, however, in my opinion, it was cricket.
Bairstow was a bit dozy to let it happen to him, but the gloves are off now.
Yeah, the gloves off on both sides. The Aussie captain, Pat Cummins, saying he expects some of the members here in the posh area to have their memberships taken away for allegedly manhandling the players. The Lords apologising for that. The Aussies very much on the defensive tonight. England, in contrast, diplomatic. They're hurt as well. But what it does do now, for sure, is light that blue touch paper. The third test starts at Headingley on Thursday, and that is sure now to be spicy and fiery. England 2-0 down in the series. They've got to win all the next 3 tests to regain the Ashes. It's going to be spicy.
Chris at Lords, thank you. And finally tonight, the Emmerdale actor Meg Johnson, who played Pearl Ladder Banks in the soap for 17 years, has died. In a statement, her family described her as kind and full of warmth with a twinkle in her eye. They said the 86-year-old lived with dementia but battled on personally and professionally regardless.
Prove me wrong.
Hey up, ladies. One of them's come to life. I thought you'd never ask.
Former colleagues have also paid tribute to the soap star. Mark Charnock, who plays Marlon Dingle, spoke of her sweet nature and said she was adored by everyone. And Gemma Oaten has called her a beautiful woman inside and out. That is it from the evening news team. We'll be back a little bit later, just after 10 o'clock. Bye-bye.
Today we'll see warmer temperatures moving in from the east, especially around tea time. Heinz no added sugar beans sponsors ITV National Weather.
Hello, very good evening to you. Quite a breezy night to come across many parts of the country, with further showers continuing in the north as we go through the next 24 hours or so. Drier conditions for central and southern areas, but it's feeling a good deal fresher than it has done of late. This week looking unsettled weather-wise, with around average temperatures at best. In the meantime, as we head through into this evening, most of the showers across northern England and central areas will die away. However, further north across Scotland, rain will continue. There could be a few rumbles of thunder contained within it. And temperature-wise, tonight 9 or 10 degrees, the overnight low. A dry start in the south and east. On to tomorrow's details. Wet across the north of Scotland to start the day, with showers further west and some heavy rain working its way into northwest England, North Wales, transferring eastwards during the day tomorrow. Elsewhere further south, a little drier and brighter. Some showers in the far southwest and a high of 21 degrees.
Heinz no added sugar beans sponsors ITV National Weather.